Hi, it's Lucy, and today I'm here to do my reading vlog for Siege and Storm by Leigh Bardugo. This is number 2 in my series of Shadow and Bone Trilogy vlogs. If you missed the first one, that'll be linked down below, but you also might not know that I actually filmed these videos as one big video, but I separated them out because I felt like they were too long and it would be easier to have 3 individual videos for each book. So this is the Siege and Storm one. Really excited for you to see this. The Rune and Rising one will be coming out soonish. Stay tuned for that. I just wanted to do this intro because otherwise I felt like it would be jarring to just start in what was technically the middle of a vlog. Hi, hello, okay. I am like a third to halfway through Siege and Storm. So I'm here to update you all on my thoughts, what has happened in the book so far. Alina and Mal start to escape to Novi Zem. Is that what it's called? Yes. They make it there, they work there for a couple of weeks to try and make money so that they can go elsewhere. Which reminds me, we have a scene where Mal is talking to someone he works with, I think, who's called Jesp. And immediately my mind is like, is that Jesper? But it doesn't really seem to fit Jesper because he says that he'll pray for Alina so that Alina can cover the collar. She's been wearing the scarf and Mal has been telling people she has like a growth that she like doesn't want to show. So he like prays for her for that. And that's not something Jesper would do from Six of Crows / Crooked Kingdom. But it feels real odd that we'd have a Zemeni man named Jess in this book. I don't know if maybe Leigh Bardugo really liked the name Jess and extended it to Jesper and we got Six of Crows. I don't know, but wanted to point that out. So anyway, Alina and Mal are trying to get away, and they get back to their hotel where they're staying. It's not really a hotel. And they're ambushed by the Darkling, who manages to capture them and shows off his Nichevoya. I'm so sorry. Anyway, it means nothing. He made these abominations that are some kind of combination of the Volcra and looking more human. I don't know. We know now that the Volcra are descended from people who were caught in the fold, which makes me wonder, when they extended the fold in Shadow and Bone, did they make more Volcra? The Darkling captures Alina and Mal, threatens Alina with Mal's death if she doesn't stay in line, and then threatens Mal with Alina's death or torture if Mal doesn't try and track this guy. The Rusalyi, which is the second of Morozova's amplifiers, who is some weird man, maybe saint, who came up with the idea of the amplifiers. Alina's wearing the collar from the stag. Now they want to try and get something from the Rusalyi, which is a sea serpent. Spoiler alert, not spoiler, I'm telling you what's happening. They do in fact find the sea serpent, they kill it, but in a turn of events, oh I forgot, they meet Stormhunt. How could I forget that? The captain of the ship that the Darkling captures them and puts them on is Stormhunt, who's very fun and sassy. As expected, we know he's one of my favorite characters, or we will know if you haven't seen this. But anyway, so in a turn of events, Stormhunt turns out to betray the Darkling. And they do this epic battle while they're still fighting the sea serpent. And we get to know 2 people who will be important later, Tolya and Tamar, who are brother and sister, who are Zemeni, and also Grisha. I actually like the fight scene. I feel like this is so action-packed. It reads pretty fast. I was surprised at how much I like the fight scene. I don't normally like fight scenes, and this did still have me glazing over a little bit because, I don't know, sometimes they're just too detailed, but that's not a knock against the book because most fight scenes are like that, but I felt like it was still pretty good. I know that was very contradictory. Anyway, Stormhunt's crew wins. They get Mal and Alina off the ship, and they're on their way to who knows where. Stormhunt is like, I'm going to take you to meet my client, and Alina's like, let me go home. I don't want to be here. I am not a saint. Let me go home. She doesn't say it like that. Alina is tired of being tossed around, and I feel that. I'm growing a newfound appreciation for Alina, and first of all, how sassy she is, and how much she is not in control of her life, and how everyone seems to be mad at her for not being in control, even though everyone keeps trying to take control from her. So that's something interesting. Alina ends up making an amplifier out of the serpent. She does kill the serpent. She makes like a bracelet, or she has a fabricator who's part of Stormhunt's crew make a bracelet, and they make their way back to Ravka. And it turns out Stormhunt has invented a hot air balloon some kind of flying machine that he uses these squallers, I think they're called, to make air, to make it go in the sky. They end up crossing the fold in it, and they fight some Volcra in there, and Alina is very mad about it because she's like, first of all, I did not agree to go to the fold because Stormhund did tell her that they were going to the coast, not through the fold, and they're like, not teasing, what's the word? They're like calling the Volcra to them. They're antagonizing. They're antagonizing the Volcra as well so that they come in and attack and so that they can kill them because Stormhund has these new weapons along with his hot air balloon. And in the middle of all this fighting, two things happen to Alina. First of all, she starts hearing the Volcra more as human, and she has a vision or a sight of the Darkling, and she has no idea why. She thought he was really there. She thought he had like somehow teleported, and they end up getting in a bit of trouble because she was the one keeping them safe from the Volcra by having her light, and she ends up not having her light on for a minute because she gets freaked out by the Darkling in front of her. So they end up having to do a crash landing. They crash. Two people get injured, but they're both okay. They both end up fine. They have healers with them. And then they get accosted by the army who was passing by, and also they made a huge noise because they were a flying machine coming out of the fold. So the army comes, and Stormhund had changed his face because he had a tailor, which is what Genny was, which they can change your facial features and other things like that. And the whole time he was Stormhund, he was being tailored to look differently. And when they have their crash landing, Alina and Mal are like, who is this man? This is Stormhund, but that face is different. Everything about him is different. And the captain of the army comes and is like, who are you people coming on Ravkin land? And he's like, I am Nikolai Landslov, blah, 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 blah. Second prince, I forgot what he said. He's second in line to be to the throne. And I'm the prince of Ravka. And Alina and Mal are like, what? And like, if I was reading this for the first time, I would have been like, what? And if you have never read this, you might be like, what? Anyway, Nikolai is a prince, and he was Stormhund. It's great. It's fun. Alina and Mal are very upset about this, obviously, because they've been constantly lied to. Nikolai ends up revealing his plan to, become king and convince his brother to step down so that he can save Ravka, which has been torn apart since the Darkling extended the fold. And his dad / the king is very not good at ruling. So that's his plan. He wants to make Alina his queen because she's a sun summoner, and there has been a cult forming in the background where the Apparat, who I'm not sure I mentioned in this vlog, but he's like the high priest, maybe like the pope of the Ravkin religion. Is it called anything? I don't think it's called anything, but like the religion. And they're the ones who like really believe in the saints. People pray and everything. And so he's been calling Alina like the sun summoner is a saint and all these things. And people are like, the sun summoner is here to save us from the fold. So Nikolai thinks that having the sun summoner as his wife would be really good for showing the power of Ravka and getting the people of Ravka to stand behind him. And obviously Mal is really upset about that. In that situation, I can kind of see why people are a little annoyed at Mal, but also they've literally been kissing each other this entire trip. Why would you say, I expect to marry you in front of this girl's clearly boyfriend? Like, what are you expecting? I don't think it's unreasonable that he had the reaction that he did, which was to pin Nikolai to the wall and be like, I'm gonna kill you. I almost forgot. Sorry, that happened after Alina punched him in the face when the captain was like, who are you? And Nikolai does his whole speech and he's like, I brought the sun summoner to Ravka to save us all. And Alina's like, I'm sick of this, and punched him in the face. And they almost get arrested, but he's like, no, please don't arrest her. It's fine. It's a joke. Alina's like, I'll go with you to Osalta, which is where the palace is, but I'm not going to marry you. And I also want the second army, the Grisha army, for myself. I want to be the captain of them. And Nikolai's all right, and Mal is upset because he's like, you don't consider me at all, which is kind of true. I've seen other people be like, Mal is holding Alina back, and I'm not so sure. I feel like I'm going to become a Mal stan after this vlog because they are in some kind of relationship, and everything that Alina does not consider him at all. And Mal keeps doing things because he loves Alina, because he believes in Alina. And Alina realizes that she was being kind of a dick to him and is like, I did not consider whether he would want to. I just assumed he would because he does everything I want him to, which is, I am enjoying this so far. I'm actually enjoying Nikolai a little bit less. He is kind of rude. He was fun as Stormhund, but now that he's being all kingly and everything, honestly proposing to marry Alina, I completely forgot that happened. I did not like that. He's like, oh, it will just be a name. Like, you can still have Mal as your head of the guard or whatever. But that's not a life that most people want. Alina, Mal, and Nikolai is a love triangle I can kind of approve of. Alina, Mal, and the Darkling, I don't get it. I do not see it. The Darkling is unattractive to me in every way. Just reading about him, he's unattractive to me. I don't understand how you ship Alina in any way. I have seen people be like, oh, well, the Darkling wouldn't hold her back. And I'm like, Alina kind of wants to be held back. You can see that in this. She is constantly pushing back on what everyone's been telling her, whether she even wants to do this. Like, yes, she wants to help Ravka because she has this power, but she didn't ask for this power. And the fact that she was able to hide it for so long, and it's like because of Mal, but I'm starting to like realize it's not really because of Mal, it's because she doesn't really want that life. Like, deep down, I think she knew when she was younger, I don't want that like special life. I don't want to be a saint. I don't want that. I don't want all this pressure on me. So I feel like being mad at Mal because he does, not because he knows what Alina wants. He never tells, as far as I've gotten in this book, he never tells her, I know what you want. You don't want this. He tells her that I don't want this life, and Alina looks at him and is like, do I want this life? And she knows she doesn't in the back of her head. Maybe I'm saying that because I know how it all ends, but yeah, that's my thought so far. Never thought I would be into the shipping dynamic. I don't really ship characters generally, but yeah, I'm really into it now. Hi, hello, I finally finished Siege and Storm. So I want to give you my thoughts, what has happened, what's been going on. I'm going to give you some Nikolai thoughts because I feel like I've been lacking on that, even though I keep saying I love him. He's one of my favorite characters. And I stand by that. Just he's so sassy, everything he says, but he's also so smart. Yes, you want to sit? You want to sit? Come. Come. Sit here. Wants to read. Reading? This is how he reads, guys. Okay, so as I was saying, so one thing that I really liked, he's telling Alina, he tells the story of how he got the name Stormhund when he was a privateer, not a pirate. But basically he says that on the first enemy ship he ever boarded, he told the captain to lay down his sword, and the captain laughed in his face and told him to run to his mother, and that Fjerdan men make bread from the bones of skinny Ravkan boys. And then Alina asks, so you killed him? And Nikolai says, no, I told him foolish old captains weren't fit meat for Ravkan men. Then I cut off his fingers and fed them to my dog while he watched. I was shocked. Alina was shocked. Then he says, you heard me. My enemies understood brutality, and so did my crew. After it was over, I drank with my men and divvied up the spoils. Then I went back to my cabin, vomited up the very fine dinner my steward had prepared, and cried myself to sleep. So I feel like that just shows who Nikolai is. He talks a big game, he's able to put on what he needs to put on, but in the back, you know, he has a heart of gold, and I appreciate that. There's another section where Mal wants Alina to be careful about Nikolai, and she says, so you don't trust me to resist his charms? And he says, I don't even trust myself. I've never seen anyone work a crowd the way he does. I'm pretty sure the rocks and trees are getting ready to swear fealty to him. And just funny stuff. And they're on their way to Osalta while all this is going on. They like stop for the night or something. And also in the background, Mal and Alina are thinking about the Firebird, which is the third amplifier. So stuff happens, they get to Osalta, they are introduced to the king and queen. The queen is happy to see Nikolai again. The king kind of doesn't care, even though he's supposed to be really sick. I thought he would be dead by now, but he's not. And the king agrees to allow Alina to be the head of the second army. And because the king asks him what he has to say for himself, and he says that I only did what I thought was right. The king says, my son seems to feel you had a good reason. And Mal says, I imagine every man thinks his reasons are good. It was still desertion, which like just throws himself under the bus. But anyway, he's dishonorably discharged. I also want to point out, sorry, before this, Nikolai kisses Alina against her will, which is one thing that I did not like about him, because that is not good. Alina obviously didn't want it, and he was doing it to like impress the crowd, but Alina obviously would have said no if he had asked her. And she like kicks him, and yeah, that was not good. I did not like that that was included. I did not like that Nikolai did that, but Alina seems to forgive him, so I forgive him too. I don't know. So now that they're at the palace, they have to do a bunch of, you know, palace things. They have to get ready with the second army. Alina starts taking over the second army. When she gets to the little palace where the Grisha live, there's a bunch of Grisha there who either came back from the war front or were already there and didn't go with the Darkling or something. Not that many. It's not the full second army by any means. most of the second army did go with the Darkling. Everybody's fighting. People don't want Alina to be the head of the Grisha, but she's the sun summoner. So Alina blasts a hole in the ceiling. And we're also starting to see more of Alina's, like, I guess, dark side that she's starting to realize that she has. And she thinks that the amplifiers that she's wearing are causing it to come out more, because she was planning to, like, actually harm someone, and she, like, redirected it at the last second, and she was like, oh my god, what did I just do? And then we have more training and things where Alina's and Mal are still, like, thinking about looking for the Firebird, but they don't know where to start. And Alina's, like, looking in books to see if she can find anything. And Mal is going on, like, hunts, royal hunts and things, and, like, he's the captain of her guard now. We have Tolya and Tamar as her other guards members. And then we have another Nikolai moment. Alina and Nikolai are having breakfast, I think, and Nikolai antagonizes Mal once again, and Mal leaves, and he says some things that Alina didn't like, and she says that he sounds just like the Darkling, and he says, if you ever have trouble telling us apart, look for the person who isn't torturing you or trying to kill Mal. That will be me. And Alina says, are you so sure you wouldn't? If it got you closer to what you want, to the throne and your big chance to save Ravka, are you sure you wouldn't walk me up to the gallows yourself? Nikolai pauses and he's like, oh my god, I don't know. Saints, he said, his tone somewhere between bewilderment and disgust. I really don't know. And he said, I hope I still know the difference between right and wrong. I offered you freedom and I meant it. If tomorrow you decided to run back to Novi Zem with Mal, I'd put you on a ship and let the sea take you. And just another good Nikolai moment. I really just like the dichotomy that is shown in him. I think, I don't know, I just like him as a character. As most people do, that's the whole point of his character. It's what all the other characters are saying in the book, but, you know, it worked. I like him. Alina goes to visit Baghra, and Baghra basically yells at her and was like, I don't care anymore. I'm not helping you with anything anymore. And Alina's like, I thought you wanted to save Ravka. And she was like, no, I wanted to save my son, but he's clearly a monster because he has those I can't say it. Nichivoya? Yes, Nichivoya. Yeah, he made those Nichivoya, and they're clearly some kind of dark magic, which is not allowed because Grisha powers are a science, not magic. They try to make that very clear in here. More stuff happens. So there's no help from Baghra. Alina's still trying to do some research. Zoya is one of the Grisha who stayed away from the Darkling. So the whole time Alina's very annoyed with her, like, what, she was horrible to me. Why would she come to follow me? And Zoya was one of the first people to be like, I will accept Alina as our leader. She is a sun summoner. And Alina's like, what's her game? I don't know what's happening. So later we have their confrontation where Alina's like, what changed? And Zoya goes on to say that she had an aunt who lived in Novikrib. I'm not gonna say it. In the town that the Darkling ended up destroying when they went to the fold at the end of the last book. And she had a niece there, an aunt there, and she was mad that the Darkling hadn't told her what he meant to do, so she could have warned them. So she was upset about that, and she decided she couldn't follow the Darkling after that. She's still kind of a bitch to Alina though. So a little later, Alina finally decides to leave the palace. They go to a fortune-telling thing with Mal, Tolya, and Tamar. This is important later. And they ended up getting separated somehow. Something happened, and the apparat showed up to talk to Alina, and Alina's like, get away from me, you smelly weird man. Every time she sees him, she says that he smells like a grave. I smelled him before I saw him, turned earth, incense, mildew, the smell of a grave. So yeah, that's what she thinks he smells like. He talks to her. He's like, you're a saint. You're amazing. You're the sun summoner. Join me, please, my pretty. That's why I'm mad at him. So I'm really looking forward to the adaptation where they do that. And they're like, oh my god. And then finally Tamar is able to find her. And she's like, oh my god, I'm gonna find the apparat. And then after that, Alina and Mal have their big fight. And basically Mal says he feels that Alina is slipping away from him. She feels like a different person to him. He also says that he feels that he doesn't have a purpose. Alina has a purpose, but I don't know what I'm doing. And she says, we do have a purpose. We came here for Ravka, we. And he's like, no, Alina, you came here for Ravka, for the Firebird, to lead the second army. I came here for you. You are my flag. You are my nation. But that doesn't seem to matter anymore. Do you realize this is the first time we've really been alone for weeks? So that happens. They like go to like hug, and then Mal goes to kiss her, but then Alina has another one of her visions, which she refuses to tell people about for some reason. The Darkling is standing behind Mal, so she flinches, and then Mal obviously takes offense to that, and they have a bigger fight, and they break up, kind of. Technically they were together, but they never used any names or anything, so I guess, you know, you don't need to say things, whatever. They're very, very broken up now. After this, Alina kind of takes what he says to heart about her being different, and she feels that the amplifiers are making her this way, so she kind of talks to David about what would happen if she removed the amplifiers after they defeat the Darkling, and he's like, probably something worse than the Fold, like it would be catastrophic. So Alina takes that in the back of her head and is sad. A little while later, Alina and Nikolai are at some event, and they have a moment. They're like sitting together and having a quiet, nice time. He says, I want to kiss you. And she's like, you already kissed me. Remember that time I said before? And he said, I want to kiss you again. And Alina's like, I don't know how to feel right now. And then Nikolai says, I want to kiss you, but I won't. Not until you're thinking of me instead of trying to forget him. Alina gets mad at that, even though what he said was true. A little later, Alina realizes that Mal has been fighting, and by realizes, I mean Tamar. I think it's Tamar. I keep confusing Tamar and Tolia. Tamar takes her to the secret fighting ring that the soldiers all have between the Grisha and the, I cannot pronounce what they call the regular people. Ostrovinska, I don't know. But yeah, so Mal is fighting a Grisha. He wins, which is pretty cool. But then they have another big fight because Mal has been spiraling. He's been drinking. He's fighting. He doesn't know what he's doing. And Alina's like, wants to fix it. And he says, you can't fix it. This is the way it is. Did it ever occur to you that maybe you were meant to be a queen and I'm not meant to be anything at all? He said, I'm not a soldier anymore. I'm not a prince, and I'm sure as hell not a saint. So what am I, Alina? And Mal is just sad. He's depressed. He doesn't know where he's going with life. And Alina finally reveals that she was seeing visions of the Darkling, which I guess any time is better than any other time. And then very soon after, Alina decides to go out into the crowd of people who sit outside of the palace every night to pray to her. And she ends up getting caught, like her scarf falls down so people see the collar, realize the Sun Summoner is among us. And they literally try to tear her apart to like get a piece of her, which sounds realistic. Tolia and Tamar show up, are mad about her doing that. Alina has a realization that in the book she was looking at, it showed an archway, so they were thinking about where they would find the archway, which is where they would find the Firebird. Alina realizes that the name that the fanatics had for her sometimes was Daughter of Two Mills, because the town she's from is between two like ruins, and people just assumed it was mills, but she's thinking maybe it used to be an arch that fell apart. And so she's like, the Firebird is where she was born, and Mal wants to go find it and do the tracking for it. And Alina's like, no, it's too dangerous. And Mal's like, let me go, Alina. And Nikolai's like, let him go, Alina. And so they're gonna let him go. But first, there's a dinner time arrangement where the prince, who I don't think I've mentioned in a while, the other prince that's not Nikolai, the older prince, the one who's headed for the crown, reveals that the trip he went, which was supposedly to go watch horse races, was to broker a deal between the Fjordins, where he gives up one lumber mill or lumber area in exchange for troops and resources in their fight against the Darkling. Nikolai hears this and realizes that the fort he gave up was the one path from Fjorda. They were logging roads, sorry, not lumber mills. I don't know why I said that. These logging roads were a nice even path from Fjorda to the palace. It's only defended by one fort. That fort is definitely slaughtered by now. We have to leave right now because it happened over a week ago. And turns out Nikolai was right, and they're immediately attacked, which makes for good, tension and things. Like, you're like, oh my God, while you're reading it. Realistically, I mean, none of it is realistic. We're talking about not magic, the small science, but magic. Very sad, Vasily dies, who's the older prince. Okay, basically almost everyone dies, I should say. There is an epic battle with the Nichivoya, the other Grisha. They had this whole disc thing that David had set up that was supposed to help their battle. If they were prepared, they would have been able to set it up, but they weren't prepared, and it was supposed to reflect Alina's powers, when she shoots light, so it could cause real damage, but they didn't have time to prepare, so it kind of wasn't as good. That whole thing was failed. I think Maria died. Lots of people died. Nikolai goes to try and save his parents, and also Bagra. Alina wants to save Bagra, and he made another rendition of the hummingbird, which was his fake hot air balloon plane thing that was made expressly for the purpose of getting them out before a battle, but they plan the battle, you know? So not the best circumstances, but yes, lots of people die. Alina is confronted by the Darkling in the chapel, where she also figures out that Tamara and Toya were, you know, the part of the cultists. They were a little better than the cultists, but also they believe that she is a saint, and they had been working with the Apparat. That's how before, when she met the Apparat and it seemed like Tamar couldn't catch him, she had led him to her when Alina got caught in the crowd of the people worshiping her, like when she was trying to be anonymous. That's why they were right there, because they were also worshiping her, or like praying in the morning, because that's what they do. I don't know if it was obvious to me because I've already read this, so I think I remembered it, or if it was obvious from before. I don't remember how I felt the first time. That's kind of how I feel throughout the book. I'm like, some things, I'm like, I predicted this, but I'm like, did I predict it, or did I just know what's gonna happen? Because like, there's some things that I forgot, but like, you know, in the back of your head, you still know things, so I think that's what happens. And so in this confrontation with the Darkling, she ends up like using the connection that they have, because the Darkling was apparently like physically there when he was showing up in her vision and things like that. Or not physically there, but he was like projecting, like he also knew that he was there, if that makes sense. So she like ends up using the projection back on him, and she tries to destroy the Nichivoya through him, and it's like killing them both, and Mal won't let her die. And she forces Tamara and Tolia to take Mal, but they still let Mal. Hello, it's a new day. I was in the middle of telling you about how Siege and Storm ended, and I was like 10 pages from the end and I didn't finish. Alina tries to kill the Darkling. She doesn't get it, but I think she destroys the Nichivoya or tells them to kill themselves. I don't know. And she's saved by Mal, who like pulls her away from the Darkling, and they go through the tunnels in the chapel to safety. Genya is with them. She was revealed by the Darkling. The Darkling disfigured her heavily in ways that are not fixable by Grisha, because I believe that he like sicked the Nichivoya on her or something like that. I'm sure it's because he found out that when they left after Stormhend's attack, Genya basically let them go. And the story ends with Alina basically not being able to use her power, because something, when she connected with the Darkling that time, she like felt it like leave. I don't know how to explain it. It's magic. I mean, small science, but it's magic. So she can't use her power right now, she says. The last line of the actual story is, "The light won't come, Mal. My power is gone." So that's how it ends, you know, on a bleak ass note. We have that after story, which is interesting. It's very interesting how Leigh Bardugo loves to do that. In the beginning of every book, she has like a introduction that's supposed to be like a prologue that's told in like third person that doesn't refer to Alina or Mal or any of the characters by name. And she just says, the boy, the girl did this. She does that in the beginning and the end. So that's a very interesting thing. I don't know how I feel about it. Some of them I don't feel like are necessary. I do want to point out, I have started listening to the audiobooks. One thing I noticed with the audiobooks that's very weird to me is that the narrator will put on like a fake Russian, I don't know if it's real, I don't want to comment on that, some kind of Russian accent when she's speaking from certain characters' point of view that doesn't make any sense to me, because all of the characters are like pseudo-Russian. Like that's the whole point of this world. It is based on Russia. I don't know how accurate that like portrayal is, but like the whole point of this story is that, and the words that are used are all based in like Russian language and things like that. So it's very weird that the narrator keeps putting on the pseudo-Russian accent for certain characters, when I'm like, shouldn't all the characters have this because they're all from the same place? It's very weird. So that's something I noticed with the narration of the audiobook. With the actual story, I think when I talked about Mal, I really feel that. When I talked about Nikolai, I really feel that. I've been really enjoying Alina. I really, like I said at the end of the first book, I really enjoy her like sassiness. I really enjoy seeing her journey of not knowing what she's doing, but still going along with it. I actually don't remember a lot of Ruin and Rising, so I don't really remember what's gonna happen next. I don't know what's gonna happen next, so I'm looking forward to reading that. I actually enjoyed this more the second time around than the first time around. My Goodreads review just said something about enjoying the action and just feeling like it was a story, and I don't think I felt like a lot of things happened, and I've seen other reviews where people were like, this is a filler book, nothing happens. And I feel like so much happens. So much character development happens in this book. I'm so surprised I felt that way the first time I read it. Just because the characters like kind of go back to where they were doesn't mean that they didn't change at all or know anything. I really saw that in this book, so I'm excited to see where the rest of the story goes.